This is what I'd like to just talk briefly about today, who we are, why Samaritans is here, exactly what we do, because I think sometimes there are some misconceptions about that, and probably most importantly of all, how people can get in touch with us. So this slide shows you a little bit about our service. I think the key things to point out are that Samaritans is a national organisation with 201 branches all over the country. That includes a festivals branch, which goes out to festivals around the country at different times of the year, and also a correspondence branch where people can write to Samaritans and will get somebody writing back to them. All the other branches are physical branches with amongst them excuse me, over 20,000 volunteers. In Watford, we have about 160 active volunteers at the moment. And we are available to receive calls from people 24 hours a day, every day of the year. This is a photograph of the founder of Samaritans, Dr. Chad Varra, who was an Anglican priest who at a very young age was called on to conduct the funeral of a 14-year-old girl who'd taken her life by suicide. And that very sad story stayed with him. And when he moved to be a priest in London in the 1950s, he told his church in the City of London that he was very interested in starting to work with those people who had problems and felt they had absolutely nowhere else to turn. And so the telephone service was born. But initially, it was literally just him and a telephone, but it very quickly took off and is now grown to the organisation it is today. His vision was that people could find a way to help themselves on their own terms if people would listen properly to what they had to say. It was the media who actually coined the name Samaritans after the Christian parable of the Good Samaritan, but it's never been a religious organisation. Who we are? Well, we're all volunteers. Everyone in our branch is a volunteer. We don't have any paid staff, and we're all completely ordinary people. We give our time freely, and important to understand that we're not professionals. We don't offer counselling. We listen, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what that entails. So if we think that we're speaking to someone who could benefit from the services of, for example, a counsellor, then we can point them in that direction. But initially, our service is there to be there for anyone who calls, to listen to them. We all undergo a very intensive training programme, and by the time volunteers completed that training, they'll be able to listen very carefully. This comprises giving one's whole attention to the person we're supporting, making sure they've understood what that person has said by summarising what they've said, communicating warmth and calm through the tone of the voice, appreciating how the person feels rather than how the volunteer would feel in their situation, and asking lots of gentle and open questions to help people explore their thoughts and feelings in more depth. This slide will give you some idea of why what we do is so important. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 and of young people aged between 16 and 24. The figure I've got up there on the slide for the number of people who took their own life is a figure for 2018. I haven't got a more recent confirmed figure. There have been some difficulties in getting the final numbers, but It's not going to be very different from that. So, every year, nearly 7,000 people take their lives. And of course, that doesn't only affect them, it affects everyone around them, their family, their friends, their colleagues, and their community. Suicide's not equal. If you're less well off and male, you're 10 times more likely to die by suicide than more well-off men. So our view is that fewer people die by suicide. And we're here for anyone who's struggling to cope with anything. So there's no typical person who contacts us and no typical problem that they talk about. They'll talk to us about anything and everything. So, for example, currently, the calls are often about people who are experiencing the stresses of Christmas. I know we all do that, but for some people, the difficulties are much greater. It brings thoughts of people that they've lost, problems about family relationships, family dynamics, financial worries, they can't afford all that they think they need to do for Christmas. All those sort of things. You imagine some of the things that might have passed through your mind and then sort of magnify that. And that is how it is for many of the people who call us. They often call us about things that are difficult to talk to a friend or a family about. And we appreciate that it can take a great deal of courage for them to open up to anyone. And if they've opened up to us, then we hope that that is the first step towards being able to talk to people who are more regularly in their lives, or indeed to seek some kind of professional help. So it's really important to understand that you don't have to be suicidal to contact us. Most of our calls come from people who are not suicidal, but are struggling to cope in other ways. So this Christmas, and in fact, always, we're available all around the clock, 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. And I think this is what makes us unique among helpline services. So we will be very busy over the Christmas period, and we will have volunteers in our branch through that time to answer the telephones and to answer emails. We also have a web chat service which has just been introduced, which we take part in some of the time. So those are the three main ways for people to contact us at the moment. We do other things as well, which we won't so much be doing over the Christmas period, but we are involved in outreach in the community. We do talks in schools. We regularly provide support and outreach at the railway stations in Hertfordshire. So that's partly just sort of talking to people on the platforms and raising awareness of the service, but also providing support in the unfortunate event that there has been any kind of incident on the railways. We can go in and support and talk to members of staff who may have been traumatised by the experience. What else did it say on that slide? We work in partnership. So we do work in partnership with Hearts Help. They're not here at the moment, but they do have our number and they do refer it on to people should they feel that they need it. And the larger Samaritans organisation is involved in working to use their expertise to influence government decisions and media and other agencies to take action to help reduce suicides. So I've spoken to you about how people can get in touch with us. The really important thing is the helpline number 116123. It's a free number, and people will get through to a Samaritan as soon as there's one available, wherever that person is in the country and wherever the Samaritan is. I've also mentioned the email service and web chat, which is quite popular amongst younger call us. And there is also the letter writing service for those who prefer to be in touch with us in that way.